We're going to talk about, can we run with horses? First of all, I want to tell you about our vacation. Heather and I took a vacation years back. We went to Yosemite. And we went to Yosemite and we got to see the sequoia trees. Has anybody been to Yosemite, seen the sequoia trees? I mean, they are awesome. I mean, they are huge. These trees, let me tell you how big they are. They are as tall as a 25-story building. They're 300 feet in the air. Now, what's 300 feet? Well, if a football field, if you took a football field and put it upright, that's how tall the trees are. I mean, it is massive. You can't even, I just can't explain how big they are. I mean, they're 36 feet in diameter, the trunk of the tree. So that would be like from this whole row, this from end to end, you're standing in front of this tree. That's the base of it. I mean, it's incredible. One of the limbs on the branches that we saw, it was 6 feet thick. Just one branch hanging off the limb. They live over 3,000 years. The bark is 2 feet thick. That's just the bark. That's the size of, that's how thick it is. One tree contains enough wood to build a 50-room house. One tree. So here we are, Heather and I are standing by these trees. We're just in awe, you know, and they're beautiful trees. As we're standing there, we had somebody take a picture of us. So we got a picture of us, and we look like two little tiny ants. You didn't even get to see the other ends of the tree. They'd have to step so far back to get the whole thing in the picture. So we're standing there, and all you can see is like brown. It looks like you're standing behind a brown wall because it's just a huge tree. And so as we're looking at this tree, you can't see anything in front of you as you're standing in front of it. But as we took a little hike, we're taking a little hike up the mountains there. So we took a little hike up the ridge, and we're looking down on all the trees now. We're quite a ways up. And so I'm looking, I told Heather, I go, where are the sequoia trees at? She says, and we're sitting there looking for them. I'm like, well, they stand out like a sore thumb, so we should be able to see them, right? So there's a little tour guide there. We said, where are the sequoia trees at? Are we missing something? We turned around. She goes, no, they're right over here. So I looked there. I go, they don't look much different from anything else. She goes, well, you know, you're so far back. You know, it's perspective. She goes, you're just seeing the tops of the trees, so they kind of blend in. She goes, but yeah, it's right there. And then you've heard the saying that you can't see the forest for the trees. You ever hear that? In other words, if the trees are in the way, you can't see the forest until you step back. And it's very much like our problems. Our problems are like a sequoia tree. We stand there and we think about our problems, and they are 2 feet thick, 36 feet in diameter, right? I mean, they're huge. They are huge. And we're looking at our problems sometimes, we're thinking, you know what? I can't deal with this. I cannot deal with it. It is so massive. There's so many things I have to deal with. How can I serve Jehovah? But what we have to do is like what we did. You have to step back and look at the big picture. And that is the way that you're going to be able to endure this system and draw closer to Jehovah. If you do not step back, you're going to hurt yourself because your problems are too big. You know what I'm saying. You know what I mean, you probably got some problems right now in your mind's eye. You're thinking, I don't know if I can deal with them. You can. Step back. I'll give you a little story. When I came into the truth, I had hair about down to here. You know, big Sean Cassidy look, you know, little skinny tie, leather jacket. So I come to the meetings, and one of the brothers, ex-circuit overseer, real firm, ex-military, he says, I said, how you doing? He goes, hey, when you getting your hair cut? You know, it's like my second meeting. So I'm like, you know, so the next Bible study I had, the brother goes, how'd you like the meeting? I go, that's pretty good. I go, you know, one brother made a comment to me. I don't know what his name is. He goes, you know, why don't you get a haircut? He goes, yeah, so? I said, so? Oh, he's kind of rude. He goes, it's true. I said, well, he goes, you see anybody else's hair like that? I go, no, but he could have said it nice, you know, so I'm making a big deal about it. He goes, Ed, let me help you. If you're going to make it in the truth, he goes, I'm going to give you something to live by. And I tell you what, I have lived by it, and it has helped me from day to day. He said this to me. He goes, well, let me ask you this. He goes, what does that comment have to do with the issue of universal sovereignty? Well, nothing, but I tell you what, he goes, answer the question. I said, nothing. He goes, exactly. Let it go. Who cares? He goes, Ed, step back. Step back and look at the big picture. The issue is Jehovah God's sovereignty. The sanctification of His name. That's it. Will we prove Satan the devil a liar, or will we not? It has nothing to do with what he said to you. Who cares? He goes, who cares what he said to you? He goes, if you're going to let that stuff bother you, I'll tell you right now, you won't make it. You'll stumble yourself right out of the truth. And by the way, he gives me the scripture that says there's no stumbling for those loving Jehovah's law. So this thing about saying, hey, I got stumbled by the brothers, not according to Jehovah. There's no stumbling block for those who love Jehovah's law. So that's out of the picture. So I hear that, I don't even accept that. I'll go on a shepherding call. Well, one time a brother, who cares? What's it have to do with the issue of universal sovereignty? Do you love Jehovah? Don't hurt Jehovah. Because some guy told me to cut my hair. It was true. So what? He wasn't tactful. Big deal. You know what? It happens all the time. Guess what? I do the same thing. So we have to make sure that we step back, because if we don't, our problems will be so big and we won't be able to cope. We won't be able to come to the meetings. We won't be able to study because we can't deal with life. And so we become discouraged. We become depressed. We become step back. And so here's something that helps me. It may help you. What I try to do when I get up in the morning, I do this little ritual. I say to myself, I see Jehovah and Satan says, today's the day, Jehovah. Ed is going down. And Jehovah says, no, that's not going to happen. Because he was faithful yesterday, he's going to be faithful today. Satan goes, no, I know it bothers him. I've been watching him. He's got this little thing right here. He goes, you know what? I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna crack it open today. Jehovah goes, no, it's not going to happen. Satan goes, yeah, you watch. And so I play that out in my mind, because Proverbs 27:11 says, right, we can prove Satan the devil a liar. So Jehovah can make a reply to who's taunting him. And so I think about myself, okay, so today, if I stay faithful to Jehovah, Jehovah can look at Satan after the end of the day and say, you lose. You lost. I told you he would remain faithful. And then the other flip side of it is, if I don't serve Jehovah, or I do things I ought not, or if Satan says, and that's the worst, but Satan says, I told you today would be the day. And you know what? I don't want that to happen. I do not want Satan to taunt my God. And so that helps me personally. And maybe that will help you with your own problems. Step back and see what's the issue. It's not you. It's not me. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about Jehovah. So that being the case, I should be able to bonk you right on the head tonight, and you go home and serve Jehovah and be happy you got bonked and come back to the next meeting. Now I'm going to do that with Brother Nillis tonight. I'm going to bonk him on the head and see if he comes to the next meeting. He said it doesn't matter. It's not me. It's about Jehovah. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some of our sequoia-like problems and see if we're stepping back and sort of if we get the big picture. So let's turn to Jeremiah chapter 12. Jeremiah chapter 12. Now Jeremiah was told to talk to the Israelites, and he was to talk to them and tell them that they were going to be destroyed. They were going to be taken to Babylon. Worship was going to be disintegrated, the temple. Now here he is telling them that, and they're giving him troubles. Okay, so he's getting frustrated, because you know what? They're not listening to him. And so he's got this sequoia-like problem. He's got this pressure on him. So here's what he does to Jehovah. Now as we go through this, think about your own personal problems and see if maybe you feel the same way. So Jeremiah is complaining. In Jeremiah chapter 12 and verse 1, he's talking to Jehovah. And Jeremiah says, you are righteous, O Jehovah, when I complain to you. So he's letting Jehovah know, listen, you're righteous, but listen, I got a complaint. He says, indeed, when I speak even about matters of judgment with you. He says, why is it that the way of wicked ones is what has succeeded? That all those who are committing treachery are the unworried ones. Jehovah, they're not worried. I'm out here preaching, I'm out here teaching, they're making fun of me, they're scoffing me, they don't even listen. They're not even worried. They're out there having a great time. Verse 2, he says, you have planted them, they have also taken root. They keep going ahead. They have also produced fruit. You are near in their mouth, but far away from their kidneys. And you yourself, O Jehovah, know me well. You see me, and you have examined my heart in union with yourself. Jeremiah is pleading and says, listen, I'm doing the best that I can. You know me. You can see my heart. And notice his frustration. Notice how it comes out here. He says, single them out like sheep for the slaughtering, and set them apart for the day of killing. Kill them. Why don't you just kill them? Take them out. They don't care. Take them out. How long should the land keep withering away and the very vegetation of all the field dry up? Because of the badness of those dwelling in it, the beasts and the flying creatures have been swept away, for they have said, he does not see our future. Jehovah, they don't care about you. They don't even think you're going to do anything. They're just having a great time. Why don't you just kill them? Now, you could see Jeremiah's frustration here, and maybe yourself with your own problems. Do you feel that way sometimes? I mean, do you just feel like, you know what, why does this keep going on? When's it going to stop? I deal with one problem or one anxiety, one sequoia tree down, and another sequoia tree pops up. I don't know if I can bear anymore. And so maybe you had the same spirit that Jeremiah had, going to Jehovah in prayer and saying, listen, I don't know if I can do much more, Jehovah. I need your spirit. I need your help. End this problem. Kill the problem. How does Jehovah respond? It's very interesting to hear how he responds. It's in verse 5. Jehovah says this to Jeremiah. He says, because with footmen you have run, and they would tire you out, how then can you run a race with horses? And in the land of peace are you confident? So how will you act among the proud thickets along the Jordan? What does that mean? What did that mean for Jeremiah? Well, to help get a proper understanding of verse 5, look at Jeremiah 11 and verse 21. Jeremiah 11 verse 21. There it says, therefore this is what Jehovah said against the men of Anathoth. Well, who are the men of Anathoth? Anathoth was Jeremiah's hometown. It was about 3 miles from Jerusalem. So it's a little tiny town. And the men of Anathoth, they were giving Jeremiah a bad time. Notice what it says. It says, they are seeking for your soul, saying, you must not prophesy in the name of Jehovah, that you may not die at our hand. So in Jeremiah's little hometown of Anathoth, he was getting pressure, and they said, Jeremiah, you better be quiet. You know, we know you live here, and we live here with you, and we're about sick of it, and you're going to die if you keep talking, you keep prophesying like you're prophesying. So he's getting this pressure from Anathoth, this little dinky town, and so in verse 1, in Jeremiah chapter 12, he starts making a complaint to Jehovah. Hey, I'm getting some pressure here. I'm getting some pressure. Now that kind of would be like... little tiny town, be kind of like Pittsburgh. You know. So in Pittsburgh, you got these problems, and they're giving you troubles, and maybe your own sequoia-like problems, and you're telling Jehovah, listen, I'm getting frustrated with my sequoia-like problems right here in little Pittsburgh. Now, let's go back to verse 5 so we understand what he's saying here. He says, in Jeremiah 12, verse 5, it says, because with footmen, now footmen are speaking of the people of Anathoth, with footmen you have run, and they would tire you out. They would tire you out, those little dinky people in Anathoth. He goes, then how can you run a race with horses? What was he talking about? Jehovah said, you know what, Jeremiah? You're complaining about your little footmen. You know where I'm sending you? I'm sending you to Jerusalem. I'm sending you to Jerusalem where the big boys are. You think you got problems now with your dinky little Pittsburgh. I'm sending you to Jerusalem. That's where the false prophets are. That's where the priests are. I mean, that's where you're going to have. That's where the king is. You're going to have some real trouble. That'd be like sending you to Chicago. So it says, now in the land of peace, are you confident? Some people like that. Pointer's loving that over there. Yeah. Says, so how, now he goes on to say, how will you act among the proud thickets along the Jordan? What's he talking about? Thickets along the Jordan. Jehovah says this, Jeremiah, you better tighten it up. Because if you can't handle it in Anathoth, How are you going to handle it in Jerusalem? By the way, guess what's going to happen? You're going to run for your life, and you're going to run out of Jerusalem, and you're going to run to the thickets along the Jordan. That's how bad it's going to get. The thickets along the Jordan. What's in the thickets along the Jordan? You know what's there? Lions. That's where the lions, if you look in the inside book, that's where they hid. He said, you're going to run from Jerusalem for your life into the thickets, and you'll be glad you're there. The lions are there. So you think about Jeremiah's complaint. Jehovah's telling him, you better get it together. And you know what, friends? It's the same thing with us. I mean, this is a very sobering, straightforward talk, because we have to be able to deal with our Sequoia-like problems in our little Fitchburg, because we're about to run with horses. And you know what our horses are? The Great Tribulation. The Great Tribulation. It's right ahead. And if we can't deal with our problems now, how are we going to make it when the Great Tribulation hits? Jehovah's telling us the same thing. We got to tighten it up. If now little town of Anathoth is keeping us from our meetings, keeping us from moving forward spiritually, our jobs, I don't care what it is. If you can't handle it now, how are you going to handle it when the Great Tribulation comes? You may not have a place to meet. You may not even have a Bible. You may be running for your life. If you're not going to make it now, how are you going to make it? You can't run with horses then. Now let's just get an understanding of the Great Tribulation. We're not trying to scare you, we're just trying to sober you, because it's reality. So let's go to Matthew chapter 24 and verse 21. Matthew chapter 24 and verse 21. This is reality. Matthew chapter 24 and verse 21. It says, for then there will be great tribulation, such as not occurred since the world's beginning until now. No, nor will occur again. What do you mean? Well, it's saying the Great Tribulation that you and I are about to face, there's nothing that's happened that's been worse, that was going to be worse. Even Jeremiah's time. Even Jeremiah, you think, boy, I wouldn't want to be Jeremiah. Well, guess what? The Great Tribulation is going to be worse. You're thinking, how about Noah's time? Worse. Destruction of Jerusalem. Worse. It says in verse 22, in fact, unless those days were cut short, no flesh would be saved. But on account of the chosen ones, those days will be cut short. It's going to be so bad. And I don't know what it is. I could just sense it from the friends. Sometimes I feel like the friends are going to come into this Kingdom Hall on Sunday meeting, and they're going to walk out, and there's going to be destruction and a paradise. It's not going to be that way. Our faith will be tested. There is no doubt our faith will be tested. And so we got to pull it together now. And we can do that. We just got to get spiritually strong. We got to do it, because big things are happening. We have to be able to run with horses. Can you imagine a time when we don't have a place to meet? What are you going to do? Do you notice that the branch is focusing on what? What are they focusing on? You know what they're focusing on? Book studies. Get in your book studies and turn your time into your book studies. Deal with the problems with your book study overseer. Your book study overseer, that's your little congregation. That's the message. I'm telling you as a circle, that is the message. Have strong book studies. Why? They've always told us that. They're emphasizing that now. Why? We got to be able to run with horses. So we have to strengthen ourselves now. So if we can't get to the book study now, how are we going to do it when we're running for our lives? And that may be the case. Now it's funny, because we'll read the yearbook of brothers and sisters that are going through torture, or going through severe problems in their country. Getting thrown in jail, getting thrown in prison. And we read that, last year's, we read it and we go, you know what? Boy, our brothers and sisters sure are faithful. Well, can they say the same thing about you and I? If we were written in our yearbook right now with the way we're living our life, would they say, boy, they sure are faithful. With all that materialism and all those problems, all those Sequoia-like problems they face, boy, they sure are. Could they say that about you personally or me personally? See the point? Or, see, there may be a day they may be reading us in the yearbook about us suffering. See, why can't that happen? Isn't that funny? We don't even think of us. We just think of them, those poor brothers and sisters. Maybe we'll be in the yearbook next year. Yeah, they lost their kingdom halls. They lost they were put in prison. It could happen. It could happen like that. So friends, it's not to scare you. It's like saying, well, if you're sitting there saying, hey, well, that's not very encouraging. It's very encouraging, because Jehovah's telling us what we need to do. He loves you. He loves all of us. And He's saying, tighten it up. He knows we have problems, but we can deal with them if we put Him first. Did you hear the comments tonight? Put Him first, and He will help you to deal with those sequoia-like problems. He will help you to step back and look at the big picture. So we have to examine ourselves. So let's examine ourselves. Jeremiah chapter 15 and verse 6. Go to Jeremiah chapter 15. Jeremiah 15 and verse 6. I want you to think about your own personal life, and nobody beside you or your neighbor or your whoever. I want you to think about yourself. And notice Jehovah's feelings about those who step back. Jeremiah chapter 15 verse 6. He says, you yourself have deserted me, is the utterance of Jehovah. He's talking to the Israelites. He's talking to his people. He said, you yourself have deserted me, is the utterance of Jehovah. And you'd say, no, I never desert Jehovah. But here's how he considers deserting him. He says, backwards is the way you keep walking. And I shall stretch out my hand against you and bring you to ruin. I have got tired of feeling regret. So think of your own spirituality. Are we walking backwards? Do we do real well spiritually, and then we do go backwards? 1 step forward, 3 steps back. 1 step forward, 4 steps back. 1 step forward, 5 steps back. 1 step forward. You see where we're at? We got to stay close to Jehovah. We have to be moving forward. That's why we're setting goals for you. So setting goals is, you know what? So maybe I'm here, and next 6 months, I'm here. I'm closer. And then here. And here. And that's what it's all about. Moving forward, building your relationship with Jehovah, and building your faith. Because you know what? You have to run with horses. You can't get out of it. You cannot get out of it. You're going to have to deal with it. You can wish it away. You can hope it doesn't happen to you. We are going to face a great tribulation. So how can you do that? Well, there's some things that we can do. If you look at Matthew chapter 16, verse 24, we're going to talk about it. Matthew chapter 16, verse 24 is going to help us to move forward, to progress, to get the big picture. Now, let me just say this. I've given this talk a couple times. A couple people, they've gotten discouraged, and they're like, hey, that's pretty serious stuff. I don't know if I can make it. You can make it. I don't care what your circumstances are. Jehovah will help you. So if you're dealing with your circumstances and you're just doing this, if you're doing all that you can, that's all Jehovah asks for. He doesn't ask you to compare yourself to me or to anybody else in this congregation. You know what you can do with Jehovah. That's the beauty of Jehovah. Isn't that great? He doesn't ask you more than what you can do. That's great. It's a win-win situation. But we have to be giving it 100%. Matthew chapter 16, verse 24, it says, then Jesus says to his disciples, if anyone wants to come after me, number one, come after me, move forward, not going backwards, come after me. Number one, let him disown himself. So you disown yourself. When you dedicated your life to Jehovah, He said, what did you say in prayer? Go back and think about it. Go back and think of your prayer to Jehovah. You said, I'll tell you what I said. I said, Jehovah, I want to serve you no matter what. I don't care what happens in my life. I don't care what trouble. Jehovah, I am your servant. I will do anything. Nothing will stop me. I remember it very clearly. I was so powerful in that prayer because I loved Jehovah so much there was nothing that was going to stop me. Is your prayer like that? I'm sure it was. And so we disown ourselves. We disown what we like to do. There's lots of things I'd like to do. There's lots of things. But you know what? In the new system, I'm going to wait to the new system. So now it's time to work. You've disowned yourself. You've disowned yourself from what you like to do or what you feel like. You said, I am a disciple. I will do whatever you want. You said it right there. Disown. Disown. Number 2. Pick up your torture stake. It says somebody that would continually come after you would pick up his torture stake. Well, that means that we would be able to accept sequoia-like problems. Sequoia-like problems. We're saying, you know what? We'll take them. Because to be a Christian, you know what, is not a picnic. That's what it says. Jesus says, you know what? You're going to have some pressure. You may have it from peers. You may have it from workmates. You may have it within yourself. Sometimes the friends tell me, boy, that devil's working hard. Yeah, he's working hard, but you're the one that stepped in it. You did it. He had nothing to do with it. Sometimes I'd say that. Friends get in trouble. That devil's working hard. Well, the trap was there. You knew it was there, and you walked right in it, and the devil's working hard. What's that got to do with the devil? You walked in it. Don't walk in it. So, yes, we have pressures, we have problems, and yes, we have to deal with health problems. We do have to deal with our own imperfect flesh, but we can deal with it. Pressures, we said we take them on. Then number 3, it says, continually follow me. It's not just do it once. That means continually. That's why you keep setting goals. So you keep moving forward. You don't go backwards. So ask yourself, am I continually following Jesus Christ? Or did I do good for a while when I got baptized? And I got excited. You know, like people say that. They say, when they get baptized, I think we should lock them up for a year. Who says that? I don't agree with that. I say let them go. We should be like that all the time. That's the way I was. I was out there. I was on, you can imagine. That's what they said about me. Lock that guy up. I had more Bible studies. I had more joy in the ministry. It was incredible. I talked to everybody. I didn't care who it was. See, what happens when we start slowing down? Or we start saying, what happened to it was the truth, and we were so excited about it, so now it's like, like clocking in and clocking out. It's like, it's like church. What happened to us? See, our faith has grown dim. We've got to keep moving forward. We should be excited as the first day that we knew about Jehovah. More so. Because we learn about Jehovah and we see His good qualities. It's like you meet somebody that seems really nice, and you're like, I really like them. And then you get to know them and you really like them because they are really nice. And you're even drawn closer to them. And that's the way it should be with Jehovah. It's like, okay, we saw what kind of the paradise, those are wonderful things, but look how He deals with people. The fact that He gave His Son. Now we should be really tight with Jehovah. Our faith should be stronger, not weaker. So we have to reactivate our zeal so we're moving forward, so we're able to run with horses. Now it doesn't mean that we're going to be trouble-free. Our brothers and sisters do it all over the world, and they're faithful, not trouble-free. Remember our brothers in Malawi? Remember that? Years back, our brothers in Malawi, they were banned, and they had to sign a political card. They wouldn't do it, so they tortured our brothers and sisters. They went through some and we read in the yearbook, and they got pictures of our brothers. One's missing an ear, one's missing his teeth. They put our brothers through terrible times. Now, when we were at Bethel, one of the privileges we had the brothers come in from the branch, and one of the brothers we had. Don't look at her. She starts crying, I get crying. Okay, here's what happened. One of the brothers from the branch, he was in Malawi. So we had dinner that night with him and some people in the room, and we asked him, we said, could you share some experiences with us, with the brothers and sisters? And he says, well, I don't really want to talk too much about it. He goes, but I'll share my experience with you. And we said, okay, so we're listening there. And he says, they wanted me to tell them where the brothers and sisters were. And he says, I wouldn't tell them. He goes, so they tied me up by my feet, and he goes, they beat me with a rod and left me for dead. And he says, my wife came and looked for me the next day and found me. They cut the rope, left me laying there. And he goes, my wife found me the next day. My wife was 8 months pregnant. And he said that I didn't think I was going to make it. He goes, I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't feel anything. He said, so I told my wife, he says, I want you to name the baby Jehovah is your father. I can't remember what he said in the African language. He goes, because I told my wife Jehovah has to be his father because I'm not going to make it. And he tells us the story, and he says, but I made it with Jehovah's help. And he started to wind down the story, and it was very important to him. He says, but I didn't tell who the brothers and sisters were. I never said a word. We're like, it's okay. We had a common, this is okay. He goes, I was loyal. I never told. It's okay. It was awesome. And everybody's crying. We went home crying. I told Heather, I said, you know what? We don't get it. I said, you know what? My spirituality is pathetic. I heard that experience. I said, I need to do better. He was so encouraged. He just wanted to let us know He was faithful. It was just to watch His expression. He just wanted to know He did not tell. If you could, you read about it, but to hear it and to see it, it was unbelievable. Now let me tell you a little something. Now, one of the first things that they do when persecution comes, they always go after the circuit overseer. So you be faithful, right? I told Heather, you sure you want to get in this work? I said, the first thing I do is go after the circuit overseer. She goes, yeah, that's right. They go after the circuit overseer, yeah. I have to throw that in there or I'll start crying, so I throw that in there. That's why. So, be faithful. Now, here's the key. Here's what we got to do. What we got to do in order to sustain ourselves, we have to do the basics. The basics are maps. Maps. What does that mean? M-A-P-S-S. I don't know how else to do it. I know there's all kinds of other ways you can do it. That's the way I do it. Maps. So if you were to take the word maps and you put that on your piece of paper, and you go home and do this later, and you put M-A-P-S-S on the top of your paper, M stands for meetings. So you look at that and you examine yourself. Make sure you're not going backwards. Make sure you're going forwards. And ask yourself, how am I doing with the meetings? Personally, my life, how am I doing? I'm missing the book study. I'm going to improve on that. Draw close to Jehovah. Move forward. If you can't run with the footmen, how are you going to run with the horses? If you're saying, well, I make the meetings, but I don't comment very much, make a point to comment. See, we're back to our goals, aren't we? We're back to moving forward inch by inch. The next one is A for association. Ask yourself, how am I doing with association? Do I come here and plant myself, or do I get around and do something? Ask yourself, am I support, or do I need supported? Sometimes there's friends that they just always need lots of support. High maintenance. Are you high maintenance, or are you supporting others? All of us have the privilege and the opportunity to support other people. Be a supporter. Quit being a supportee. Do something. So if you're sitting there sometimes, well, nobody talks to me. Well, why aren't they? There's a reason they're not talking to you, I can assure you. You do something about it. Get up and talk. You just jump out of the chair and go meet somebody. Associate. And if they're not, some sister says, well, they never invite me to their house. I said, when was the last time you invited them to your house? Are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? Which one are you? Do something. Invite them over. I said, sis, you invite that sister over. I promise you she'll invite you over. She'll return it back. You invite that, you know that brother? She goes, no, not really. Well, invite him over. Get to know him. So do something about your association. P is for prayer. What are your prayers? You fall asleep during them? It happens. Stop. It's a precious privilege to pray to Jehovah. How about S is for study? The first S on maps is study. What are my study habits like? Am I reading the magazines? Am I reading part of it? What are we doing? We have to study. Study is the key. I wish I could put that first, because that is the key, is drawing close to Jehovah. The last one, of course, is service. What is my service like? If I'm one of those irregular ones right now, I'm going to stop. Half of you did. That's great. You don't do it for me, you do it for Jehovah. You know what? You're getting ready to run with horses. That's what you're getting ready for. Maps is the key. Now, Jeremiah chapter 15, verse 20. Let's look at there, and let's look at something positive, and that will assure you that Jehovah is going to help you. Jeremiah 15 and verse 20. I think, I don't know, Brother Feriance. I don't know if I can do it. I got so many sequoia-like problems. You have no idea. I may not have no idea, but Jehovah does. And here's what Jehovah says. 15 verse 20, chapter 15 verse 20 says, I have made you, this is what he says to Jeremiah, I have made you to this people a fortified copper wall. And they will certainly fight against you, but they will not prevail over you. Why? Why wouldn't they prevail over Jeremiah? Jehovah tells them, for I am with you. To save you and to deliver you is the utterance of Jehovah. I will deliver you out of the hand of the bad ones, and I will redeem you out of the palm of the tyrannical ones. Can you imagine how encouraging that was to Jeremiah? He says, okay, it's okay. I am with you. You know why I'm with you, Jeremiah? Because you are loyal. You're running with horses, and I'll be with you, and no one's going to touch you. I'm God. I can protect you. Trust me. And what a wonderful thing. And Jehovah says the same. So we don't have to worry. We don't have to worry, are we going to die? Jehovah says He will save us and He will deliver us if we what? If you're moving forward. If you're faithful now. You've got to be faithful now. You can't wait till the last minute. It doesn't work that way. Faithful now. And then Jehovah will protect you then. Now, it's interesting that He uses a fortified copper wall. Why does He say fortified copper wall? Well, copper conducts heat very well. Now, some of you sisters may have, or brothers, you have some pans. You ever know some of your pans got copper on the bottom? Your cooking pans? Now, why is that? Well, it conducts heat well. When I was in the candy business, we used to cook big vats of fudge in these big copper kettles. Maybe you saw them if you go to a little candy company or candy store. The reason they use copper is because as you're stirring these big batches of fudge or caramel or whatever you're making, as the heat hits the bottom of it, because it conducts heat so well, it dispenses the heat. In other words, it doesn't burn it. It doesn't burn it in spots. So in some parts, you got scorches on the bottom of the kettle. It stays even. And so that's why they use copper on the pans. Now, it's the same thing with us. If Jehovah makes us a fortified copper wall, that means that when the heat comes, and it's going to come, your sequoia-like problem, when it hits you, you know what? If you're made out of copper, it's going to dispense. And you're going to be able to withhold the heat. You're not going to get burned. You're not going to get scorched. And the heat will come. You're getting heat right now, I'm sure. We all are. But if Jehovah makes you a fortified copper wall, you can sustain the pressure. Isn't that beautiful? Jehovah loves us that much, and He'll help us. And let me tell you something. Let me talk to you kids for a minute. You young ones, you listen up. I want you to listen to me. Because you know what? We are tired of losing our young people. Why are we losing our young people? What is wrong? Why is that? We are losing our young people like crazy. Why is that? You know what it is? It's because Satan hates kids. He hates you. Satan hates you. What did he do to all the children that were born from 0 to 2 years old when Jesus? What did he do to them? What did Satan have them do? He had them slaughter all those babies, all those young people. Satan hates kids, and he hates you. And yet, for some reason, I guess I understand why to some degree, but you go out there and you think that you can touch the world and survive. You can't do it. You can't stick your finger in the trap and not get it taken off. Satan will hurt you. He doesn't play. It's not a joke. He will hurt you. He wants you to be dead. Not hurt, dead. And he will kill you. He views you like a piece of gum. What do you do with a piece of gum? You chew a piece of gum, what do you do? After a while, when it's out of its flavor, what do? You spit it out. Isn't that what you do? You get tired of it and you spit it out, and hopefully you're not spitting it out on the pavement, but sometimes you do. And you're walking in the grocery store on a hot day, and you'll see on the pavement as you're in the parking lot, you'll see gum stuck to the bottom. Because so what Satan does is he takes your youth, your energies, your vitality, your purity, and he takes that and he chews you up and he spits you out. He doesn't want you. And when he spits you out and you're there on the pavement, stuck on the floor, who's going to be there to pick you up? Now, who do you think? Who do you think when you're at your lowest point, after Satan has gotten done with you, chewing you up and spitting you out, who will be there to pick you up? Who? Who's going to be there? Who's going to help you? Go ahead. Brother Washington? Who's going to be there? Jehovah. And who does Jehovah use? You know who he's going to use? You know who's going to be there? The elders and your mom and dad. That's who will be there. Your friends, worldly friends, that said, I tell you what, I was in the world, I had worldly friends. You know, they told me, oh, Ed, we're like this. Yeah, all that stuff, yeah. Hey, you ever get in trouble, I'll be right there for you, man. I've got your back. Yeah, okay. So one night, one night we get in a little trouble at a bar. Guess who gets thrown in jail? Yeah, yours truly. So here I am in jail for the truth. So here I am in jail. My friends, gone. Nobody. And guess who I called? Guess who I called? I had nobody to call. I called my mom. Mom, it's me. What's wrong? It's 2 a.m. What's wrong? I'm in jail. You're what? What'd you do? I won't even tell you what I did. I was like, it's stupid. She goes, listen. She goes, okay, I'll come get you. And my mom came and got me and bailed me out. Where were my friends? I didn't see my friends for a week. Gone. And you know what? That's the way the world is. That's reality. That's the truth of the matter. So you get that stuff out of your head that you're missing something in this world, because Satan will hurt you. He will hurt you bad. We've seen it. Okay, I'll give you one more experience here. Let me give you the experience of an elder in the Middle East, in Lebanon to be exact. Now, you think you have hard territory here. Now, in Lebanon, they have these so-called Muslims fighting the Christians, and they're killing one another. Okay? So our brothers are in Lebanon dealing with this, right? They're fighting they're killing one another. Now, they get up, and there's bombs going off, there's bullets going off, and our brothers have to deal with it every day. They get up, no big deal. It's no big deal to them. So they're in a war zone. Now, one day, one of the elders was home with his family. It's a true story. It's a true experience. And they heard gunfire, which in Lebanon is no big deal. So what happens is people are running in the streets, which also is not unusual in Lebanon. But this time, the footsteps come running up to this elder's door with his children. They kick open the door. They have a machine gun. They plant themselves down, and they stop. And the brother asks him, he says, silence for a few minutes. And the brother says, why didn't you shoot us? The man takes off his mask, and he looks at the brother, and he says, I know you. He goes, how do you know me? He goes, you were at my door, weren't you? He goes, you were at my door a week ago talking about a paradise on earth. I remember it. He goes, I remember you. He goes, that was you. And of course, they're under band. And so at that time, he goes, yeah. He goes, that was me. And he says, you know what? You do not deserve to die like these other Christians. And he let him live. That's a true experience. So, what do you think was going through this brother's mind at this time? You think he was worried about payment? You think he was worried about his house payment? You think he was worried about a Sequoia-like problem that he was dealing with? The only thing that he was happy that he did that day was go out and service. That was it. You know what? It didn't say he placed a brochure. The experience doesn't say he started a Bible study. He just showed up for service, knocked on the guy's door, talked about the paradise. He remembered him. The only thing that helped this brother was that he was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah takes care of His people. And He will take care of us. So friends, don't tire out. Don't let the problems of life get you down. Don't let your Sequoia-like problems overwhelm you. Step back, look at the big picture, and prove Satan the devil a liar. Keep your perspective and never relinquish our assignments from Jehovah. Jehovah is going to strengthen us to cope with all that we have to do now and all with what we'll have to do to meet in the future. You know what, friends? Let Jehovah make you a fortified copper wall. Because if you can't run with footmen now, how will you ever run with the horses?